A theology of holiness for me begins in Genesis 1 and 2, when God created humanity in his image to be in a relationship not only with him, but with each other. This relationship and this image then are broken or muddied in Genesis chapter 3, what we call the fall, when humanity put their desire to have knowledge over God. They do this by eating of the fruit that God told them not to eat. We call this original sin. In the Nazarene denomination, we also believe in personal sin, which is the willful act of breaking one of God's laws, which of course Adam and Eve did here. And thus they muddied not only the image of God within us, but they also muddied relationships. And in Genesis 3, you can see that they begin to fight with one another. Thus, the remedy for this muddied image is a relationship that is found in the Trinity. It is through the grace of the Father that he sent to us Jesus to be the perfect person in this world, to be the perfect Adam. And thus, he fulfilled the Shema, which is found in Deuteronomy 6, which states to love God with all your heart, mind, and strength. It then continues on to say that we need to follow his commandments and to teach our children, to write it on our doorposts, to put it on our foreheads. Thus, in Deuteronomy 6, we kind of see that to love God is to follow his commands. The priests then took this and they made it very legalistic, and they wanted to make holiness a separation from everything in the outside world. Fast forward to the prophets, and they begin to see that we need to be loving to one another. They say that we need to love our neighbor, that we need to be there for the foreigner, for the refugee, for the poor, for the widow, for the orphan. This all comes together then in the person of Jesus. Jesus was and is the embodiment of holiness, of perfection. It was an abstract idea which is now made physical in our world. Thus, it is through his person that we have a cleaned mirror that is not fully cleaned, but it is cleaned enough that we are able to have another relationship with God, because it was broken and now it is repaired where we can have that relationship. Thus, when we call upon Christ to be within us, when we accept what he did for us, we are justified by God, and then we are beginning to be in the process of sanctification. It is thus through that we have a new birth and relation that is built through the Holy Spirit that dwells within us. And thus, through the process of sanctification, we are filled with the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, who convicts us of our sin and guides us to have a desire for love of God. And through that love of God, we are filled, and we are continually filled every day, moment by moment, with grace and love. And thus, by allowing that relationship to take place, sin is then pushed out. And so we are able to be sinless. However, the sinlessness of sanctification and of perfection is not the goal. The goal is relationship. The goal is relationship with God and with each other. That is why we get the command from Christ to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Perfection is not, holiness is not a concept. It is an action, and that action is love. And love cannot be defined by words, but it is only through action that love can be defined. And so when we have this relationship and build this love, then we have a motivation that guides our desires. No longer do we want to put our desires above God, such as in the garden, but we want to put our desires in God, and through God, everything is then made perfect. Thus, perfection is having our eyes set on God day in and day out, allowing him to align our lives in a way that perfects love with him and love with another.